everyone, how you going? My name is Lisa Blair and I am a solo sailor, ocean explorer, adventurer and climate activist. I guess I'm most well known for sailing solo around Antarctica, spending 92 days in the Southern Ocean aboard my boat Climate Action Now. And I am with you now today having a chat with Gemma and Ian on the Big Scuba podcast. So excited to have a chat about my adventures, sustainability, ocean health, and what we can all do to make it a much better place for our little creature friends in the bottom of the ocean.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Big Scuba podcast. This is episode 197. Thanks for downloading. With me is...
Hello, my name is Gemma. I'm the other co-host, and welcome to the Big Scuba podcast.
The other one, yes. You have downloaded a scuba diving podcast. What is this all about?
Well, the Big Scuba podcast, we talk to people connected to the watery world, including divers. We talk to, like we've got our guest coming up, somebody who is a solo sailor. So connected to a climate activist. So we've spoken to astronauts, we've spoken to artists. Who else? We spoke sculptors,
artists,
poets. So, but they've all got a connection to the underwater world in some way.
They certainly have, and we should also say at this point, because we connected to the watery world as well. These episodes come to you sponsored by the lovely people at NartDat90.com. They are beyond technical.
But in duet.
Yes. We didn't practice that at all.
No. So if you want to look up Narc 90, they supply equipment and servicing for all your diving needs.
And they've got some new fancy covers for tanks and other rebreather type items and things like that. So give them a look and shout out to Tash. They've been busy with a needle and thread.
Yeah, so you can find Narc 90 at www.narc90.com.
Yes, go there. Okay, coming up, as Gemma said, we have a guest for you. Explorer, solo sailor, adventurer, world record breaker, all sorts, done loads of sort of stuff. And we got to know this lady first at one of the ocean films festivals that we went to. And it was a brilliant film all about her story, how she managed to circumvent the Antarctica.
Yes, yeah. So the film was called Ice Maiden. And we went to an evening and there were various films showed, but yeah, that one really stood out. She's a very strong soul.
She is Lisa Blair. So it was great to talk to her and hear her story, and that'll be coming up very soon.
Yes, yeah. So what else have we been doing? We have teamed up with a paddleboard company called McConks for this year.
Yeah.
So they are friends of the podcast, but we'll be promoting their paddleboards and other accessories and equipment.
Yeah, and sustainable as well. So they've got a good green ethic. So look them up on their website.
Yes, and also safety as well. So they're very much into safety on the water and when you're paddleboarding. So.
Which does get missed, doesn't it? When we spoke to Ben and Sam from Lundy, and they said about, they've had to rescue people who have been swept out on paddleboards and that. And it's so easy to go buy a paddleboard. A lot of shops sell them, and there's no training at all, is there? You can just go and out the sea you go.
No. And equally, when we've been out on the river, we've seen people out on paddleboards with no safety equipment, no leashes, and you just think, you just need to be really safe on the water. Yeah. So we'll put the links to McConks in the show notes, and we have a discount code as well.
Really?
The Big Scuba 2025, and that gives you 5% off their boards and equipment, and they do have a sale on at the moment, so do look them up.
Pretty cool. Yeah. Well, we're recording this, it's mid-February, and it's a bit cold, but some people still go out, and we've got the summer coming, we've got the spring coming, and great time to be out on the water. and it's a good thing to do. And you can go get on the water and enjoy it and see the world.
Yeah, that's right. I went out a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday. The sun was out, and I had the river to myself, and it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. We should also say you should have a license if you're on a paddleboard,
You should.
especially on the Broads. So yeah, that's one thing you should be aware of as well. So don't get caught out.
No, no. So be prepared, and yeah, obviously go through what you need for your safety equipment and your own safety out on a paddleboard at this time of year as well.
Yeah, yeah, and so something we did talk about once, and maybe this would be the time to do it, is to paddle and get a dive in
Mm.
on one of the rivers as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
something to have a look at, you
Yeah.
know.
Yep. We need to give a shout out to one of our listeners who sent in an email and gave us a review. And that is David Pearson from Dream Divers in Rotherham. He is a dive master and he sent us a lovely message.
You certainly did. Yeah, so I'll say thank you. And we should also just remind you that we probably don't mention it enough, but reviews do actually really help us in a way that it helps the algorithms put round and send around our podcasts. So when people search for, let's say, Scuba podcasts or things like that, when you leave a review, whether it's on iTunes, Spotify, wherever, it does help because then they go, oh, well, actually, this one has been left a good review, and so if you and it costs nothing. It's absolutely free to leave a review, and on iTunes you can leave a 5-star review, and it all helps. So if you're a regular listener,
yes, it pushes us up the ranks, so which is good.
Yeah, which is really good. We should also say hello to our new friends at Sports Financial Services as well. They sponsor this podcast. You'll hear the advert a bit later. And if you are in need of life insurance, term insurance, then you need to speak to them guys. And they'll also look at because they do specialize for divers, or particularly anyone in the who's got
extreme sports.
Extreme sports, and diving comes under that. So even if you're a big techie diver and you're used to going down, let's say 100-meter X plus, then do what makes sure you properly covered, don't you, at the end of the day, for your family, and make sure everything else is covered.
Yes.
And so give them a buzz. Advert coming up in this episode.
Yeah, and also to say that it is a free quote that you can get from them. They don't charge, so which is usually these times.
Yeah. I've been busy at CrossFit this week. Been a busy old one. Ache a little bit today, actually. Yeah. You're nursing a small injury?
Yes, so no running for me, unfortunately, but yeah, hopefully we'll get that sorted. But yeah, to all you divers out there, it's really important to maintain your fitness. So you're ready if you are waiting till it warms up to jump in the water, but fitness is important.
It certainly is. So and I've got my dive medical coming up in a few weeks' time. So because I should be back with Crystal Seas dive mastering by Easter.
Yes, it's come around quick, isn't it?
That's come around quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be good.
Yeah.
And also go diving. Have you got your tickets?
Yes, absolutely. So we've booked our tickets. We're going to be there the whole weekend. It's March the 1st and 2nd up at Stoneleigh at the exhibition centre there. And yeah, there's lots of speakers. It's sort of growing by the day, really. I keep seeing.
Yeah, I'll just having the flick through, see who's on board. I know Maria Bollerup, Ranver, and several other people are all down for the stages. Loads of people who can't actually pronounce. Reza Burkan.
Yeah. So one of our previous guests from a few weeks ago, Luke Bullis from Fathoms Free, he'll be there.
Yes, they're on there.
Yeah.
Oh, so's Dave Kennard, isn't he?
Yeah, from Neptune, Neptune's Army of Rubbish Cleaners. So from Wales. Yeah, so it's but we're looking forward to seeing familiar faces, new faces. If you see
Nick
us,
Lyon,
mm-hmm.
he's going to be there. Nick, So who else? Jen Smith. Who else? Who else we got?
There's photographers, technical
Yeah,
divers.
some names that I can pronounce. Who's this?
What
Royce in Madison.
do you need your glasses on?
Uh, Tiffany Norberg. Now that's a name I can pronounce.
Yeah.
Rick Walker. There we go.
Yeah.
Who else? Jane Morgan. Alex. Oh, no.
Anyway, we've already mentioned Knocked at 90, and they're actually going to have a stand at the Go Diving Show as well. So
Yes.
yeah, look them up and pop along and see them. So yeah.
Don't nick all the sweets all at once. Save some for.
Yeah, if you like Haribo sweets, go to
I'm
Knocked.
pretty sure John will have plenty of Haribo on the
Yes,
counter.
yeah, it never fails. Any package we get from them, and anybody else that buys anything and has it delivered, yeah, there's always some sweeties in
There is, and if you go there, they've got a big pack of these little packs of Haribo, haven't they?
Yeah,
So it's always fun, and yeah, it's good. Right,
yeah.
should we get our guest on?
Yes, yeah. So we spoke to Lisa Blair. She's based in Sydney, and that's where we spoke to her a week ago. And she tells us all about solo sailing, her record-breaking records, and about her boat, which is called Climate Action Now, and obviously her mission to make awareness about the oceans. There's some interesting facts about plastic, isn't there? That blew us away, really. Yeah. So
and be ready to be inspired because not only did she start from nothing, she put things in place to somehow get that money in, which is a huge mountain to climb in the first place, let alone go and do the sailing afterwards. And then when something goes wrong, goes back, didn't say, hey, that's it for me. I'm done. I had a close call. No, or actually, go back to finish the job and then did it again.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And she's doing another
amazing
record, isn't it? She's coming to England later in the year to do London, up north, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of London to London. So yeah, she's a very strong soul and lots of inspiration can be taken from her.
Yeah. So this is her story.
Yeah. So this is episode 197, Lisa Blair. Well, welcome to the Big Scuba podcast.
Yay, excellent. Well done.
So we came across you with the World Water Film Festival. I think that was a few months ago, wasn't it? And we saw your film Ice Maiden and we just thought, wow.
Got to get her on.
The Ocean Film Festival, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, it's just such an amazing film. Just truly inspiring. Yeah, we just sat there mesmerized. Yeah. So how did your journey start in the watery world, the sailing world?
Yep. So I actually didn't grow up sailing. I was planning to become a high school art teacher, and I randomly got a job as the cook and the cleaner on a charter boat when I was 25. And I just fell in love with sailing and followed the opportunity. I just loved the adventure of it. And so I started kind of chasing down options and trying to open doors to get on another boat to go and do another adventure somewhere else. And, that set me sailing around the world with the Clipper Around the World Yacht Race, which is a UK based race. And then I went solo sailing after that.
Yeah. So did you actually sort of do your sailing tickets as you sort of got into sort of thinking,
Yes.
I want to do this? Yeah.
Yeah. So I got my Yacht Masters Oceans and I eventually became an instructor in sailing as well.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's really exciting to do. I'd learned to sail and it was just like really, really good courses.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good courses. And I guess like you're pretty responsible for everybody's life on the boat. When you take a boat with crew out to sea, you kind of have to know what you're doing to be able to get everyone home safe. So, the courses are generally really well prepared for that and supporting people in that transition into skippering boats and getting out to sea.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And do you come from a family of sailors?
No. So no one really in our family sailed. Dad was a dive master, so we'd been connected to the ocean throughout my childhood, even though I lived in the bush on a solar powered property, 30 minutes from the sea, but we never really went to the sea that often.
Right.
And then when my parents got divorced, my mum actually got quite into sailing. And so she started sailing and met her next partner who had a sailboat. So I'd spend a few summer holidays and things like that out on his boat. But I was a teenage girl. The last thing I wanted to do was like learn what the blue rope meant. You just tell me to pull it, I'll pull the blue rope. So I didn't really spend any time kind of learning or trying to cultivate any knowledge in sailing until I was much older.
Yeah. And if you weren't
Yeah.
a sailor, what do you think you'd be?
Uh, Definitely an artist, but yeah, I was kind of falling back on a lecturer or art teacher of some form. But yeah, something like that.
There's quite a
Maybe
few.
another adventure of another area of the world.
There's quite a few people we spoke to who have a connection to the water, but also are really into art, and they're either the painters or they're into music and things like that. And we often see this with people who have got a real strong connection to the seas and the ocean are also
Yeah.
very good with art, and it's weird how that kind of resonates with you get the best of both like that.
Do you think it's connection to the sea or connection to adventurous thinking?
Oh, I don't know. That's a
Could
good
be a bit
point,
of a both,
actually.
because we've spoken to
Yeah.
sculptors as well, haven't we? And it's just
Yeah.
amazing. And the difference in the art as well.
That's a good question, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I also come across quite a lot of people in the adventure world, whether they're walking, hiking, running, doing crazy things. And yeah, heaps of people like paint, sculpt, do all sorts of
Mm.
beautiful work with it and kind of capture their adventures that way. But I wonder if it's more around, that attitude of being a bit more present and being a bit more kind of wanting to find pathways off the beaten track a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. And I think there's a certain magnetism as well, being, we are apparently, 90%, aren't we, in water? And I feel very drawn to being near the sea, and
Yeah,
I personally couldn't live like in the center of the country. I
no,
feel I need to be near
absolutely
the
not.
sea. And Gemma's even closer to the
Yeah, I
sea.
live right by the beach, and it's always in me that I just want to be by the sea. Yeah. So yeah, and I think that's why, sailed and diving, swimming, paddleboarding, anything to do with the
Yeah.
water, it just makes you, I suppose, a bit calm, but there is the adventure there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
This episode is brought to you by Narked at 90, the cutting-edge pioneers in the world of diving equipment. Meet the founders, John Routley and Brent Hudson, who have logged thousands of mixed gas dives over the past 3 decades. About 20 years ago, these experienced technical divers combined their passion for diving and engineering skills to create Narked at 90. Whether you're new to diving and ready to take it up a notch, have a fair amount of experience, or are considering a transition into technical diving, we highly recommend Narked at 90. They're ready to advise on the best equipment and setup for your personal and commercial needs. Narked at 90 also has extensive hands-on experience with shearwater and ratio dive computers, being the longest-serving UK service centre for these brands. They're ready to offer technical support, servicing, repairs and upgrades for all shearwater and ratio computers past and present. In addition to shearwater and ratio, Narked at 90 stocks and supports many other brands such as DiveSoft, JJCCR, Hollis, Revo and Kiss rebreathers. The diving community is always enthusiastic about Narked at 90 and it's easy to see why. Here are just a few reasons. Full head servicing for rebreathers from various manufacturers, bespoke cable assemblies, advice on specific fitting requirements, suggestions and guidance for home builds, computer laser cutting and engraving, CNC milling and turning, pressure testing to simulate 400-metre dives. We're thrilled to partner with Narked at 90, a company that has ignited so much passion for diving and has been incredibly supportive and innovative in producing and selling dive equipment. Visit narkedat90.com to see why they're a renowned name in diving. Stay updated on their insights and offers by following them on social media. Just search for Narked at 90 on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram and hit that follow button.
what does being on the water mean to you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because when I race with crew and I I had other people with me. It's a completely different experience than when you're on your own. You've got people to soundboard off, you've got people to kind of digest or problem solve with, and you've got community around you, whether it's positive or negative, you've still got people around you within that community. And you're all driven towards a single purpose of like getting the boat from point A to point B across an ocean. When I go solo, um, the interesting thing with that is there is no one else but me. And so I become so in tune with the sea that it becomes like a heartbeat almost to me. Like I can feel the pressure change on the wind. I know a storm's coming before I see the forecast. Like I one time was almost sailing into a cliff and I woke up because the wave formation was slightly different to what had been before. And it was enough to kind of activate my internal alarm system and wake me up and get me on deck to tack the boat. So for me now, sailing is I go to sea and it's like I've come home. It's not I want to be out there so much more than I absolutely get the opportunity to do. But yeah, it's really that you get so much time to be present, sit down, watch the ocean, watch all the moods of the sea come through, all the different sky formations, all the wildlife that you get. But you're doing it for 3 months straight. So it's that extended exposure in that environment and the simplicity of life at sea, which is really eat, sleep, sail, what's the wind doing, rinse, repeat, and so you don't have all the kind of chaos of land that we have on a normal daily basis.
Yeah. And as divers, we often feel the same, where, for people who dive a lot, often will say the same thing, is that they actually feel at home under the water, because you just get accustomed to it, and you just love that feeling of being under the water and that, one with nature and things. And do you get to the stage where you spend so long at sea that you read the weather and you can read what the sea is actually doing? Because there's apps and things like that today and modern technology, and I sometimes use the weather app on my phone for my work and stuff. And I know that I look at that sometimes and that's not always that reliable, right? And if that's wrong, it just doesn't really mean anything much to me. It just means that maybe I forgot my coat or something like that. For you, that can mean a big deal, if those apps and technology is wrong. So do you find that you've spent so long now that you're more attuned to what's going on around you in the sea, and you read it more before the technology tells you?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's necessarily before. I think they're a symbiotic. Yeah, it's sort of like, say a storm's getting forecasted, a storm's coming, but you're expecting a certain amount of conditions and the conditions aren't what you're getting, or you are getting them too early than the forecast. So then that the center of the storm has moved up a little bit or down a little bit, and you're likely to get different conditions than what the forecast told you, or the storm's accelerated. So it's hitting you earlier and you can see the storm clouds on the horizon a day before it was originally due to hit you. So those sorts of things. And particularly, like, most of my sailing is Southern Ocean sailing. So, there's not a lot of weather stations in the Southern Ocean. So data set wise, there's not as much information getting sent back to the algorithms to generate weather forecasting. So then I'm kind of relying, like, we know that there's something happening, but where I am in relation to that something is like something you kind of have to puzzle out as you go through. And it's generally down to the barometric pressure on board. But yeah, I mean, you kind of like witness the change in the atmosphere, the change in the way the wildlife's moving, the wave formation shifts. You can start to see the white caps developing. You start to see the storm petrels coming through so they ride the front edge of a storm system. You can feel the pressure change. You can feel the coolness in the air as the rain's coming before it hits. Like, you do get really quite sensitive to that. But likewise, I'll smell land from 3 days out when I've been on an extended voyage before I see it. Yeah, because I'm so attuned to the smells around me on board a boat, which is ocean or the localized smells sense across the vessel, that
so is that
something
good
unusual
smell?
like grass or plant matter is a smell I hadn't had for 3 months. And my nose just goes, oh, there's something out there.
Wow.
Or like a container ship in the distance, you can smell the fuel they're burning. Like like you can smell it from hundreds of miles away.
That's incredible, isn't it? And with time, when you're on your own, when you're solo sailing, how does time go? Do you just lose sense of like not looking at your watch because you're on your own and you don't have other people and routines around you, or do you stick to a routine?
I still have, I guess, some routines because I'm doing world records. So I've got sponsors, I've got obligations, I've got media interviews, that sort of stuff. What I do find is the first 2 weeks is like settling in to life at sea. And then the last 2 weeks is like, oh, it's only 2 weeks to port. And everything in between, it doesn't matter how long that is. It could be months and months. And suddenly you're like, oh, we're back to the 2 weeks. Like it feels like I finished the Antarctica record. It was 92 days at sea solo. Didn't see another human for 92 days. And as I was closing into port, I was like, oh, I feel like I've only been at sea for a week or two. Like I really just got into such a routine with the boat and a rhythm with it all. And it really genuinely felt like I'd just left.
Wow. So when you say you for 92 days you don't see another human, is that you don't see anyone? Like there's no one on boats, nothing at all?
I'm in the middle of the Southern Ocean. I'm halfway to Antarctica. There's no one down there. There's the occasional illegal fishing boat. There's the occasional legal fishing boat. The odd cruise ship might go past, but they're often 200 nautical miles away, not within visual distance. I did talk to a fisherman who was 40 nautical miles away on the radio once, and that was it. And I saw land once rounding Cape Horn.
For us in the UK, you know, we were on this small, pokey little island, you know, in the North Sea. And we can't go anywhere without bumping into somebody within a minute. You know, unless you have experienced what you've experienced, or you go to, there's not many remote places left in the world anymore. There just isn't. And it's a big thing to, to experience and deal with, to go for that long and not see another human.
Yeah. I mean, I did another trip, which was solo around Australia, nonstop, Sydney to Sydney as a world record. And I had the first 3 weeks, there was a ship within 20 minutes of me for the entire 3 weeks. But you're solo, you still have to sleep. You still have to go to the loo. You've got to go below. You've got to manage all those things and try and manage the traffic. So, kudos to micro sleeps, lots and lots of micro sleeps, and just surviving. But
so that brings us on to a good question, good subject, really. So, how do you then maintain yourself? So, when I was watching Ellen MacArthur, when she did her record break and sailing, I forget, she was on like 6,000 calories a day just to keep going. You know, how do you can't just take that amount of calories without some kind of understanding and things like that. So when you did your record break and sailing, what sort of calories were you on? How do you then manage your day-to-day maintenance? Because it's a lot to get through during the day.
Yeah, I didn't worry too much about like counting calories as such. Like
you got to keep fit and well,
a limit. Yeah, and I just tried to listen to my body, and I've done all of this with almost no budget. Like Ellen MacArthur, she's amazing and an absolute hero of mine, but she had pretty substantial budgets from what I understand. So she had a nutritionist and a short team and a community of people around her that were paid to support that journey. Whereas I rely on volunteers, and my poor mum uploads my blog when I'm in the middle of the ocean, and it's a whole different level of of kind of doing it. So I trained quite a bit before I left, just trying to get strength training and conditioning up, just physically, just at the local gym. And then I would make sure that my calories, each meal had around 1,000 to 1,500 calories. So if it was like, it was all freeze-dried food, so it was all boil in the bag, freeze-dried food, you just add a cup of boiling water to it and let it rehydrate. And then the one thing I found was in a short haul race, like a Sydney to Hobart yacht race or something like that, it's 3 to 5 days, you can use carbs as your primary fuel source and burn it quite quickly. And that works for a short race, but you can't sustain that for 3 months. It's just not viable. And so I would always have to add more protein to the meals because they were heavy carbs, and I'd need to double the protein or triple it quite often, so that the body was also getting the muscle recovery and the muscle tears, and that we're getting this right support. So yeah, so I just did that, and then like hydration was really important, and it's super easy, especially because it's freezing cold down there, to not drink enough water. And so, you know, electrolytes every day, that sort of thing, protein balls, protein shakes, and then I would just snack. But your entire world of routine that we have on land's different in the middle of the ocean. Like I'm not waking up until about 10, but I'm not going to bed until about 4 or 5 in the morning because of the way the weather changes through the night. And so then I'm up, I do a deck check, some big bowl of porridge with some protein powder added in, and then it's whatever maintenance and jobs I've got that day for the next sort of 4 hours, and then a snack, and then a late dinner at like 10 o'clock at night, which will be a freeze-dried meal, and then another sail change around midnight, and then try and get some sleep. And
How
I
do you
didn't
sleep?
sleep for more than, well, it's 20-minute micro sleep. So every 20 minutes, a ship gets from beyond the horizon to within a collision range, every 20 minutes. So I have an ultra loud alarm clock for deaf people. And I basically have it like half a foot from my head. And it's,
No way. I
my
need that.
eardrums are probably blowing because of it, because it's so loud. But you're so chronically fatigued, the risk of not waking up outweighs, you know, the discomfort of listening to that. And so, yeah, and every 20 minutes, I scan the horizon for traffic. I'm scanning for abnormal cloud formations, checking the boat feels good, looks good, but I'm not awake enough to like wake up. It's like if you get up to go to the Louvre for the night and you need to go to the bathroom and back, you can fall back asleep pretty quickly when you do that. So it takes me like 3 or 4 cycles of these 20-minute naps to actually start getting sleep, and then you can get sleep. And I'll do a 4 to 6 hour block of 20-minute back-to-back naps, and every hour and a half or something, there'll be something I have to do, like trim the sails or adjust, or an alarm will get tripped or something, and I'll be woken up a little bit more. But yeah, I think I average around 4 hours in a 24-hour cycle.
Wow. And physically, when you finished the sail, so say it's 3 months you've been at sea, how has your body changed? Does it change much, or do you maintain physically how you were before you started?
I didn't like lose or really gain weight as such. I did lose a little bit actually, but not a significant amount. I my legs, the depreciation of the muscle in my legs was pretty extreme, and I've since been learning about how that's affected my neuromuscular structure, with my structure around my kneecaps and my foot, like the arches of my feet and that sort of thing, because I live in 5 square meters of space that entire time. So yes, I'm standing, but I'm not walking. I'm not moving the body in the same way. I'm doing lots of stagnant standing while I'm trimming sails or looking at the horizon, or I might take 4 steps to get from one side of the boat to the other side of the boat, and then I'm at the other side of the boat and I'm cooking for half an hour. Then I might take 4 steps back to go and wash the dishes. Like it's a really low mobility kind of scenario. And then you have the intense moments where you've got to do a sail change, or something goes wrong and breaks and you're up on the bow of the boat trying to rip a sail out of the ocean, and you're like giving it absolutely everything. But because you're operating at such a chronic fatigued state, you don't have much to burn. So everything just becomes hard from the sleep deprivation build up and that general fatiguing of the body. I found it really interesting when I got back on both the Antarctica records, which is my 2 longest trips. I walked about 100, well, maybe 200 meters to the local grocery shop the next morning, and I couldn't move my legs by that afternoon.
Really?
Because I hadn't done that distance of walking in 3 months.
Wow.
And my legs rebelled massively. It took me 3 to 4 days to start being able to move properly. And then, like I was saying, the scents, like smells, changed dramatically. On land, I can't be near anyone with perfume on for at least 2 weeks until it all adjusts back to what it was before I left. And also my voice box. So I
because you never
started,
spoke.
yeah. And I have since had quite a lot of issues with it. And it's something that like you don't even think about. Like you'll lose your
You
voice.
don't talk to
Hold on.
yourself, Beeb.
Surely you must sing.
No,
when you're out
I
there
would
in this
abandon the
ocean, you're
boat
not
if I
singing,
tried to sing. I would jump overboard if I try and sing.
Oh,
No,
come on.
I
Yeah,
I
you're not.
do
You didn't sing at all. You don't.
nah, not
So when
singing,
you
but
drive, do you
I
sing when you drive?
well, you're not hand steering. You use the autopilot most of the time. So you hand steer sometimes, but it's few and far between. And it's generally when the autopilot can't cope with the conditions because the whole game is energy conservation and making a choice. Do I want to burn the energy it takes to change the sails to become faster, but when the wind might change later and I have to put them back in? Or do I want to allow myself to rest and recover a little bit longer and then do the next sail change when the system stabilizes? Like, so it's a real like kind of give and take around the energy conservation or energy usage. But yeah, speaking, I would talk to the I wouldn't talk to the boat and be like, "Hey, boat, how are you?" But I would be like, "Oh, I need to pull the blue rope," and like I'd say my like thoughts out loud.
Yeah.
So you didn't have like a Tom Hanks ball on the boat
That's
where
my
you
boat. Nah.
like
I'd give her a pat. Sometimes I'd shout at her. Yeah. When I'd be like so tired that the smallest thing would be like the straw that broke the camel's back, and I'll like pull a rope and it'll jam, and I'll shout and scream, and I'll be bawling my eyes out, and I'll rouse on the boat for not doing its job. It just needs to let me pull the rope through the little fitting, and it's this whole thing. And then afterwards, I'd feel so guilty that I shouted at the boat that I would have to give it a little pat and say, "Thank you for keeping me alive. You're doing a really good job. I know this is really difficult. I'm sorry."
It's almost a good place
yeah.
to learn to play the mouth organ or something like that because
Yeah.
nobody can hear you. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's interesting what you say
But you
about
don't have really downtime. Like also like
no.
your 20-minute sleeps day and night, any spare
Yeah.
time that you're not sailing the boat, doing maintenance, doing jobs on the boat, or I do read my book quite a bit as well. But other than that, you're trying to rest. So yeah.
It's an interesting point what you say about the conservation of energy because for us we don't understand that and that fact that it comes down to that is you've got to conserve your energy. Every bit of energy counts. You can't just go wasting it. So with that in mind, one of the reasons, as we said right at the start of your podcast, was that we saw your film, Ice Maiden, and the one big part of that, which kind of really brings it all home of what you was going through, is when you had to step out. You had that choice. The mast had come down. You knew it was going to drag the boat and maybe sink it, and probably would. And there's nobody around who's going to help, and you have to deal with that. How do you deal with fear? Because we all deal, as divers, we have to deal with fear, and we have to come over, if we're going to go into a wreck, or we're going to go down to somewhere deep, and it's dark and it's cold, and it's not nice. How do you deal with fear when you've got to then step outside that life? What do you call it?
The safety lines.
Safety line. How do you step when you do that? What's going through your head?
That was a situation that I wouldn't wish on my worst nightmare, for anyone to go through, but it was something I'd planned for.
Wow.
So in that preparation and planning phase for the listeners, this project took me 3.5 years to get off the ground. So that's 3.5 years of visualizing the worst case scenarios likely to happen. What happens if the mast comes down? What happens if I lose the keel? What happens if the rudder breaks? What happens if I break my leg? How will I manage a broken leg on board for 3 days until rescue? Like, what would I do in all of these situations? So I had thought through something like the dismasting, and that allowed me to have the tools and the kind of logic to combat it. But I hadn't really thought through what the emotional response to fear would be, or that I would be fearful in that, because I'm a very kind of logic driven person. And just before I climbed out there, and I don't know, it might have been in the doco a little bit, but I actually had to tell somebody about it because I had a 50-50 shot of surviving that next step. And if I didn't go out there, the boat was 100% sinking and I wasn't going to survive. But if I went out there, I had a small percentage of chance that I might be able to save the boat. And if I saved the boat, then I ultimately saved my life. And so I went into the boat and I called Jeff up, my shore manager up. And this is pre me climbing out to actually physically go and tackle this piece. And I gave him an update and I said, I've disconnected the backstay and the inner forestay. And Jeff is like this super uber positive, like super enthusiastic Aussie, like brilliant guy. And he's just like, well done, Lisa, well done. We're all behind you here in Australia. Like, keep at it, keep up. And I was like, yeah, cool. You don't know what I'm about to say next, but yep. And then I'd said to him, like, I've got to go out on the bowsprit to disconnect the forestay wire. And if my PLB, my personal location beacon on my life jacket is activated, it's because I've been washed off the boat. And he understood immediately what I was trying to say. And basically for me, that was going to be the only way I'd tell my family that I didn't survive. So I had to have that conversation with my shore manager and then hang up the phone, crawl out into that, look, I'm tearing up already, crawl out into that storm and go to the bow of the boat with the clear knowledge that I will probably die in the next 5 minutes. But if I don't try, I'm 100% not surviving the night. And that was where the fear, like there was the initial fear of the dismasking, but this was the secondary effect of fear. And like I'd had conversations with my family before I left, and I'd had lots of chats around me maybe not coming back from this trip. We'd spoken about it. We'd had the hard conversations. I'd set up a will before I left. Like I was undertaking a world record of such a scale that 2 people had ever done it before. Like this was the first woman and the 3rd person in history. So, you know, the risk is there. And in all of my conversations with them, I'd said, if the worst happens, it's okay because I'm living. And I'd rather live and not survive the journey, but have the adventure than get in my car tomorrow and have a car accident and die and never lived. And so I've always had that attitude and that mentality, that it was very, very different going from the theory of it to the physical reality of that's the next 5 minutes. Like it's happening now. I was hypothermic. I'd lost the dexterity in my fingers. I'd have to look at my hands to physically hold the tool to know that I shut my hand around the tool or that I was holding on, because I'd lost all of that feeling. Just the mobility of trying to move my legs was quite difficult. Just, it was like you're huffing and puffing, just trying to crawl because you're just shutting down. And I remember thinking, like in my mind, I literally froze like 2 meters from the bow of the boat. Like I couldn't convince myself to take that leap because it was a certain death. And so I spent the next 20 minutes basically screaming at myself, trying to drill sergeant the crap out of myself and get myself to move forward and just suck it up and do it because I chose to be here. No one forced me and I've just got to make it happen. And I also was really conscious that the longer I took to get out there, the less mobility I'd have, the more the hypothermia would be playing in. There was all these other factors. The hole in the side of the boat was like the size of a pretty big dinner plate by now. It was ripping wider and wider. So there was all these other circumstances. And I also went through all the tools and the equipment I had on board, trying to come up with a better option and a safer option. And it was ultimately the idea that this was the only shot that I had. There was nothing else to try. That I tried it all already. Like that was done. This was it. And I just got to do it. And I shouted at myself, just do it. And I just climbed up and I did it. And that first wave striking when you're on the bow of the boat, like the boats. So my boat's 50 foot long. She weighs 10 tons. The side of the boat, like the width of the boat's 4 meters. So she's not a small sailing boat. No. She's a big ocean racing vessel, and she was getting thrown 50 meters sideways by the breaking waves in that storm when the mast came down in that situation. Wow. So if my entire 10-ton boat's getting tossed 50 meters sideways, how do I think me as a single human holding onto a bow rail?
Just
Like that was
imagine
like
being moved that far.
That's like being on some kind of mega roller coaster.
yeah,
Shock.
absolutely. But you're also fully like it's like being in the impact zone at the surf. Like you're fully
Yeah.
getting ripped at by the waves as they break over because you're fully submerged underwater when the wave hits. And you just had to hold on with everything you had. And when the wave would pass, I'd put my screwdriver in the fitting and I'd try and hammer the thing I needed to disconnect out. And then I'd hear the next wall of water coming, like you'd hear the break of the wave and you'd just hold on again. So yeah, I actually just did a podcast not that long ago where the whole theme of the podcast was fear. And so we dove right into that night and a few other scenarios and as to what allowed me to combat it. So in that situation, I'm trying to just push past the initial fear of surviving the night. But then there's also the PTSD that you get or the post-traumatic like exposure. And
Yeah.
I feel like the bigger conversation that people, I guess, underrate is the going back.
Whether you're preparing for a local club dive, looking forward to a warm water dive overseas, or excited about the prospect of exploring a new wreck, life is full of adventures and challenges.
But what if life's unexpected moments catch up with you?
Good point. Are you and your loved ones prepared for the unexpected?
This is where Sports Financial Services can help.
Sports Financial Services are your specialists for scuba diving life insurance, income protection, and critical illness cover.
With cover from them, you can protect your family's future whilst pursuing your passion for diving with financial peace of mind.
Their tailored plans can help ensure you and your loved ones are financially protected should an accident happen.
Their flexible policies can adapt to your unique lifestyle so you can focus on the things you love most.
So speak to one of their scuba diving specialists today and join with other individual and club divers who trust Sports Financial Services with their life insurance, income protection, and critical illness cover needs.
Visit them at www.sports-fs.co.uk or call 0345 565 0935 to find the perfect plan for you, your scuba diving activities, and your family.
Even if you have an existing policy in place, they will be happy to provide a free review to show how their cover compares.
Sports Financial Services, providing financial peace of mind, one diving adventure at a time.
Woo.
Yeah.
You know, because I restarted. Yeah, so I restarted in Cape Town and I went back and finished the last 6 weeks across the Southern Ocean in winter. And that was terrifying because every new creek or groan, every time the boat was thrown around, we were flipped completely upside down 180. And the whole time I'm thinking, I'm not going to survive another dismasting. Like I just won't. And then between that project, I knew because I set the women's record. So I set the first woman with one stop because I dismasted. I couldn't get the men's record, the overall speed record. So I knew I wanted to go back and do it again, but I needed time to heal, time to process, time to find my strength again and all of that. And so it took me 5 years to get over that situation. And now I look back at that and go, actually, that was a gift because if I hadn't have had that experience and gone through that, I wouldn't have learned how strong I was. I wouldn't have learned that my planning and my, the passage planning, the risk assessments that I do were enough because it was that strategy that I employed that got me through. And it was thinking through all the scenarios that allowed me to face that scenario. And so it gave me more confidence to go and deal with the next emergency. And I think like there's the fear of not trying. There's the fear of maybe failing and being worried if we fail. Well, I failed like spectacularly in that first record, like in the world's eyes, or, they saw it as a success. I saw it as a failure until I realized until I realized that it was only a failure if I stopped there. But that became the lesson. And so I think fear is like, it's a really useful tool, but you gotta learn how to use it in your favor.
Yeah. And fear takes you further, I think. But again, you've got to deal with it, positively and constructively.
Yeah. And, you know, as an everyday person, their fear might be picking up the phone and making a cold call, or getting on a stage, or having to speak up in a business meeting, or asking the girl that they really find cute out on a date. Like, those are
that's
all
really
still
scary.
fears. Yeah, exactly. It's terrifying, right? Those are all equally scary moments, but it's, if we don't try, we won't learn the lesson from trying. So we won't know what to do better next time. So yeah,
So that
have a
old,
crack, give it a go.
so that old saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," is actually true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also we have such a comfortable life these days. Like, we don't push ourselves out of our discomfort very often.
Yeah.
But when you start doing that, you realize that you will become stronger. You will meet the challenge. You will be able to excel past the challenge. Like, and you'll be a better person for that journey. So yeah, absolutely get out. And like diving, I would assume would be a lot around pushing past discomfort, being, you know, like, it's beautiful in the water, but you've got to get in a cold, wet wetsuit first thing in the morning. You've got to get up at 4 a.m. so you can be out at the dive site for sunrise. Like, you know, all of these things that you would push yourself out of your comfort zone so that you can have the joy of that experience. And, you know, for people listening, you know, to this podcast, I want them to have that experience too.
Yeah, and like you're saying about the planning and the scenarios, again, that's very relatable to diving, because, you know, you need to have your sort of plan A and B if things do go wrong with your
And C
buddy
and D.
underwater.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Go for a little inflatable sausage thing that pops up, and you know.
Yeah. So no, it's fear is pretty incredible. Yeah.
But it's also risk management by making sure your buddy knows your symbols, like your hand signals and things like that. That's all part of making sure that the experience you have in a high risk environment is safe and enjoyed by everybody, and you can take it in.
Yeah. You always got to make sure you come home, and at times like that, I suppose you just got to remember your training and have, you know, and just do it really, because what's the option, you know? But it's amazing to hear what you say about that, and I think we are understanding more about fear and stuff when in human factors. You know, when we speak to other explorers and how they've dealt with it, it's the similar sort of stuff.
Yeah, so, I think fear and exploration come hand in hand, and you know, again, it is that planning and preparation and being prepared for the moments of fear that are important.
Yeah.
So,
and not letting it win, because fear is just it's your body's natural way of keeping you comfortable, and safe. And like, we want to be safe in everything we do. Safety is paramount for all of it, but we don't have to be comfortable.
No.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. So on your travels around the ocean, obviously your boat is called Climate Action Now. So did that come quite early, hand in hand, on your sailing journey with, you know, looking at, you know, the animals and the marine life that you see, as well as sort of the climate side of things?
Yeah, I mean, we grew up in the rainforest, so we were already quite like my parents had very much instilled respect the environment, respect the animals and the wildlife around you, and so that translated to my sailing anyway. But when I did the Clipper race in 2011 to 12, we raced around the planet with a crew of 16 people. So you're hand steering the boat the whole way around the world. And the difference between that and when I'm solo is I'm not hand steering. I'm mostly inside the vessel because it's freezing cold on deck and it's snowing and it's a blizzard and it's miserable. And so I will rely on the autopilot to do a lot more of the grunt work for the hand steering. So it means I'd see a lot less in wildlife, but also pollution, things like that. But on the Clipper race, because we hand steered, I was driving the boat for 8 hours a day, every single day, the whole way around the planet. And my heart broke from how much pollution I saw. We were halfway between Australia and South Africa and in the Southern Ocean. And it was the first time I'd seen like proper trash out there. And I kind of crested a wave at the helm of the boat. I looked out across the ocean and there was this styrofoam box, like one of those big fishing like styrofoam boxes that you see at the fish markets just floating in the middle of the ocean. Like we're halfway to Antarctica and it's just floating past out here. Like it's just going to forever be there now. That's part of the landscape or the seascape now. And then we went from Australia up towards China across the North Pacific. And the way the currents work, it clogs up a lot of the trash in certain areas. And it was so thick that we had to put a crew member on the bow of the boat to physically push the rubbish out of the way of the boat with a boat hook so that we could get through. Like it was devastating. Like as far as the eye could see was just floating plastic on the ocean.
And how big was the vessel that you were on? How many?
It's a 68-foot boat. So it's a pretty big boat.
Big,
yeah. Yeah. And so like at that time, I just remember feeling really overwhelmed by it all and just thinking, this is a massive problem, but what could I possibly do? I'm just one person, you know? And it wasn't until the idea sparked that if I'm thinking this way, there's probably 8 billion other people thinking this way. Yeah. And so therefore no one does anything and we'll never see a result. We'll never see a change come from that. Whereas I think if nothing changes, we're only going to head one direction as a culture, as a community, as humans, with how we're using this planet. And so I launched the climate action campaign with the first Antarctica record, and I chose Antarctica because it was one of the most significant sustainability kind of topics that you could talk about with climate change, things like that. But I really wanted it to be focused on the positive, and I wanted it to be an inspirational story for others to choose to follow, not a finger pointing game and not a lecture or a overwhelmingness. I wanted to take that out of it. So I go and I collect post-it notes from people. So each post-it note is an environmental action on something that they're already doing towards a better future. So if you look at the hull of the boat, we collected thousands and thousands of messages, and each message is a real, genuine action that somebody today was taking. And they wrote it on a message with their name and their town, and then all of that got turned into the digital design on the boat. And then I sailed those messages around Antarctica. And the goal was really around that idea that if I can take action, if all of these people are taking some form of action, it doesn't have to be massive, turning the lights off when you leave the room or turning the tap off while you brush your teeth or picking up rubbish when you walk your dog, like all of these micro actions, they matter. And if we can get enough people taking them all the time, then we are having the impact we want. We are educating through that. So it's an ongoing campaign. If anyone listening would like to add their post-it note, every new world record, I rewrap the hull of the boat so that all the new messages get on the boat for the next record. Cool. So you can go to the website, lisablairsailstheworld.com, and then /get involved, and you'll find them there.
That's an incredible feeling, isn't it? Knowing that your message will be going around the oceans. Yeah, with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I've done now 8 world records with those messages on the boat. So yeah, it's millions of people watching it worldwide through the media and everything, and it's really just created such a great impact, and it's such a positive story in a world of negativity with media coverage and what we're seeing on the news and things like that. So and it's brilliant when I get a group of school kids come down to the boat and they're all trying to find their messages on the hull and they're all reading them, and it's just it's just a great way of connecting with people with it.
Great way of getting kids involved as well. And we've had people on previously, and we've talked about doing something in your own back garden, because if everyone does something in their own back space, because we can't all go to different parts of the world, but if we all take care of our backyard, so to speak, a lot would happen. So it's brilliant. Do you think you'll ever stop?
Nope. my mum wants me to retire, and I'm like, no, but I can do this trip and this trip, and I still haven't walked across Antarctica, and like there's all these projects that I want to do. So on the second Antarctica record, I did all this microplastics research. You might not have seen it because it wasn't covered by the film, because the film's based on the survival story of the first project. But when I went back, we converted the bow of the boat into a micro lab at sea, and I did a whole heap of scientific collaboration. So the project was endorsed by the UN as a Decade of Ocean Science initiative and a number of different things. And one of the big things I found is that I have a capacity to create impact, not just within community, but within the scientific field, because I'm going to these really far-flung places that for them to run a research vessel out there would cost them millions, and it would outprice the capacity for them to get the research. And so we did microplastics research the whole way around Antarctica, and sadly found plastic in every single sample the whole way around Antarctica. And what's more alarming is 64% of everything that I collected off the boat for microplastics is microfiber from the textile industry, so the clothing that we're wearing. And I then learned from the researchers that an average household's load of laundry with synthetic fibers will release 300 particles of microplastics to the waste distribution streams. They do not filter for microplastics. And I'm assuming the UK is a lot like Australia, being a water, surrounded by water kind of culture. All of our discharge water goes out to sea. It's pumped into a river or into the ocean directly. And so 64% of what I was sampling in the Southern Ocean was from clothing pumped out of people's washing machines or the industrial clothing sector. And to me, that's just mind blowing. It's just astronomically mind blowing.
It is, because it's just a fact of life, isn't it? Washing clothes in your machine.
It's so simple a solution. Put a filter on your washing machine.
Exactly.
You go to Google, there's hundreds of different companies that make microplastic filters to connect to your washing machine discharge line, capture the plastic before it goes out to sea. But it's like one of those untold impacts of plastic, just like car tires. 35% of all microplastics is car tires, because our cars are made with rubber and plastic now. So as we erode it on our roads, then we get a storm, runs into the storm drains, feeds to the sea. So car tires are having a significant impact. It's all these little things that people aren't getting exposed to, or they haven't been shared with yet. So they don't know that they should do something different, or that there's a better choice out there.
Yeah, and it also could be something as simple as putting a filter on, the drains, your washing machine.
Exactly. Well, exactly. It's a simple step. Yeah. But and it's another project that I'm trying to do. Most of the filter companies are quite expensive. There's not that many that have the right science supporting the filter designs that are cost effective. So to get your average consumer just putting it on because they're told to, it's going to be hard to do that. So I'm trying to work out a way. And if anyone listening has ideas, please let me know, to make a really cost effective version of it so that it can be open sourced and freely shared, and we can get them everywhere so that everyone gets them fitted to their machines.
Yeah.
So just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there, because
absolutely,
I'm presuming these, when you say microplastics, are we talking like you can't see them at all?
So it's a plastic particle that's smaller than 5 millimeters in size, but with the mesh that I was filtering with, I had a 500 mesh size and I had a 100 mesh size, so micron mesh size. So 100 micron mesh size is microscopic. The 500, you could see little dots of plastic.
Wow.
But and the other, I guess, terrifying data that I came across the other day, and I couldn't tell you the source of it, but it was in a research paper I was reading, is that the plastic we see in the ocean is 2% of what's actually there. And by 2050, there'll be more plastic than fish in the ocean. It's just, so I'm not stopping because there's so much work to be done. We have to do something. And if I have a capacity with the platform of records to educate and inspire and motivate people to change and share this out, then absolutely, I'm going to keep doing that.
We spoke to people, and I remember we spoke to Richard Garriott, who'd been down to Mariana Trench, And
Oh
he said
wow, yeah,
you could see plastic waste down there. He said it dated to the 80s, and he said you could see it. It was down there, right on the deepest part of the world. John Chatterton, when he told us that when he was that Bikini where he was, Gemma? Do you remember?
Yes, yeah.
And he said one part of he said you turned up at this wreck, and he said that looked fine. Get to the other side. He says where the currents had collected all the waste, and that had all been sitting there for ages. All this plastic waste and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
this is all being ingested by
Fish
in the ocean that we're eating.
Well, by humans too now. So the average
Yeah.
human consumes a credit card's worth of plastic every single week.
No.
Every
horrendous.
week. And they've just recently released a study where they found it in the brain of human brains, like in the cells of human brains. They found microplastics.
That's scary.
Because our personal contamination levels are so high. But if you think about it, it makes complete sense. If you've got car tires running across roadways, what's next to roadways? Farming.
Yeah.
And and they also say that there's no single water source that's pristine anymore anywhere in the world. Not even the underground basins. They're all contaminated by either chemical runoffs or microplastics.
Yeah. In our village here, there's been a lot of complaints to the water company because of our river that flows through Bungay is very contaminated. There's been all sorts of stuff, sewage, stuff off the farms, waste from human waste and all sorts. And the villagers have been spotted it, and the company in charge, nothing happens, and they're not took to charge about it when they should have been.
Yeah.
Money talks, unfortunately. If they're these companies, if they're making money out of producing tires, they're not going to be the people to take action.
No.
Yeah, but we need to change them.
If their consumers stop buying the tires because they all get educated, then there's no reason for them not to change. We create the demand. I think it's one of the most underrated ways of creating impact with sustainability is being conscious of how you spend your dollar.
Yeah.
And when you go to the grocery shop, you have a choice 9 times out of 10 for a sustainable choice to almost every product you're trying to buy out there. And it could be cardboard packaged, it could be the loose vegetables that are organic, or it could be the chemically loaded plastic packaged laundry detergent over the one packaged in paper. It's small choices like that we as consumers make every single day, hundreds of times, or every week at least, where we have a choice to influence what we want as supply and demand. And if there's more demand for sustainable products to come forward, there's going to be more supply of that because they're not making enough money out of the chemically loaded ones. So they'll change and make money out of that.
Yeah. And it is about getting education out there in whatever medium is the way that we can change things.
Yeah. I'm actually coming to your neck of the woods for my next record. I'm looking to go around the Arctic Circle.
Oh, right.
And I'm hoping to do London to London around the Arctic. So looking for sponsors at the moment and then putting together a research project with it. But aiming to be over in the UK, hopefully in this year some stage.
That was going to be my next question. What's on the cards for your next record or your next challenge?
Yeah. So one of the other things that I've learned a lot about with ocean stresses is fiberglass pollution and fiberglass boats. And being that I'm a ocean sailor, Climate Action Now is actually a fiberglass boat. I bought her secondhand, but she is a fiberglass vessel. And what's happening is we currently have 35 to 40 million fiberglass boats reaching their end of life now worldwide.
Right.
And your average boat owner uses their boat 2 weeks of a year. It just sits in its marina or in port or wherever. And there was a study in Chichester because what's happening is the last boat owner is the least capable of disposing of the boat. And so they sink it or they abandon it on a mooring or up a riverway or estuary, and they just take all the identifying factors off the vessel and abandon it.
Yeah.
And then the councils and governments are having to put funds aside to actually do these cleanups, but they're only cleaning a small portion of the boats up and the others are just getting sunk or abandoned or breaking up in storms and things like that. And so the ecosystem, particularly with oysters, is getting severely affected by it. They're the filtration system of the ocean. And so they're filtering all this stuff out of the ocean. And in Chichester Harbour, where you are, there's 12,000 boats in Chichester Harbour, and they did a study on the oyster beds there, and it was a groundbreaking study, and they sampled 1 kilogram of oyster flesh, and in that 1 kilo of oyster flesh, they found 7,000 shards of fiberglass.
Wow.
In 1 kilo. So my next project's trying to create an alternative material. It's existing material, it's already there, but what I found is the companies working with it aren't willing to share the data because they want to make the money. Yeah. So I'm going to raise the sponsorship to fund the research and then share all the data out and bridge that gap so that we can accelerate the change a lot faster from fiberglass to a material called basalt fiber, which is basically like a volcanic rock that they turn into sheets, just like fiberglass. You can use it as chop strand, fiberglass sheets, same kind of process, and try and match it with the right bioresin that's scalable and recyclable so that we can create a fully recyclable vessel that outperforms and is priced in the same category as fiberglass boats, and then run a big influencer campaign around the Arctic Circle project to influence people as to why they should be asking their boat builders and shipwrights to change, and better accountability across all of that. So yeah.
Because we all see boats abandoned in, our estuaries and on the coast. It's the common sight, and it is the
common sight,
easy option,
Could you?
But it's very harmful.
Yeah.
Could you make a boat? And I apologize for anyone's listening who's about to shout and go, yeah, there's already these things out there. But could you make a boat out of ghost nets and bottles and reclaimed plastics and things like that? Would that be possible? Because we make sunglasses out of them. So
yes,
could we not do the same
different types of plastic. So the resin is still a glue, even though it's basically liquid plastic. And then fiberglass is the strength mesh that holds the glue together, basically, or the glue is holding the strength mesh together. You potentially could. I have seen, not necessarily with plastic, but I've seen it. They're starting to develop a lot of tech in this space with seaweed. And making glues and fabrics. They've come up with a bio-based polyester style fabric that outperforms standard plastic fabrics from seaweed. So that sort of stuff is coming through. Plastic bottles, I think they lend themselves more to non-flexible items, like non-moving. Like a boat's got all the hogging and sagging, the twisting that goes on, and it doesn't have the same bonding. But I'm not a chemical engineer.
Because they make clothing out of it as well, don't they? And you think, well, could you make sails out of it? And
you can definitely do sails. Yes, you can do sails. They do sails. So there's a couple of companies that have been experimenting a lot with it for their cruising hydronet version of sails and doing recycled polyester, which is basically recycled bottles, into the sail fabric and doing it that way. So that's definitely something.
Yeah. There's so much out there, the innovation is just endless, isn't it?
This is one industry. If every industry started transitioning, how much further along would we be in a decade?
Yeah.
We are seeing changes. You've only got to go to most cafes these days, and they're paper cups, paper tops, and things like that. I deal with the wholesalers through my job, and they no longer stock most of these plastic stuff. It's all disposable. It's all paper and things like that. And I kind of think, well, we're never going to get to a point where we got rid of plastic, because we're always going to have plastic in the world. I just don't think we'll ever get rid of it. Because of its other useful uses, But when you see it all washed up, and I think people litter pick and stuff, and then it gets recycled, which most of it probably don't, it ends up in land tip. You're only moving it from one thing to the other. So I prefer it that we can
circular economy.
Yeah, that we actually put that stuff into use and things like that. And I think it'd be really good that you could use some of this stuff that we pick up and then gets used for boats and sails and other parts of the boats and maybe cars and things like that. Because I think with car seats now, they're being using bamboo in the actual materials and stuff.
And you can do stuff with flaxseed fibers and all sorts of different materials these days. The idea. So one of the things I think that's hard is that we have too many mixed material items. So it becomes really costly for manufacturers to try and repurpose it into something else. And so I think this comes down to like the people making the item, some kind of ownership or some responsibility has to fall on them to make an item designed in a way with the purpose of being fully recycled into a new purpose item at the end of its life. And so, an easy way to switch the materials up. But even a tin can these days has a layer of plastic on it. The inks that they're using to print labels has plastic. So all of these little things, you can't do much with them because it's too difficult to separate the items out. So it becomes a pretty big problem. I do think it's down to consumer demand again, like that idea that if we're not buying the products because they're not sustainable, then they'll make them sustainable. So we have a responsibility as the everyday person to ask for more from the products we're buying and to demand that. I do know that even Ellen MacArthur, you mentioned her at the beginning of the podcast, she is this incredible English sailor, but she left performance sailing and launched a circular economy business. And so she actually goes and works with these major corporations on how can they build washing machines, fridges, all sorts of stuff fully with the intent that they're going to be recycled at the end of their life, and building them so that process is designed in to the construction of the item. And that's ultimately what I'd like to see happening with boats and, cars and all sorts of things. Like cars, they do recycle quite a lot of the cars because metal is quite precious and expensive. So they melt it down and it's quite simple process. But a lot of the other items, they're trying to work out how they can recycle them.
The future's going to be interesting. So, but we're in control. So, and we've got to, sort of show that control.
Yeah.
Well,
we've just got to ask for more.
Yes, true. We better do our 3 questions, Gemma.
Yes. What are these 3 questions?
So our first one is, if you could take 3 people on your vessel, your boat, who would you take and why? And they can be people from the past. They don't have
now you've changed this question because in our in the email it was who would I take diving, so I prepared for diving. Sailing is
well, let's go with diving then. Say if you prepared.
So the first one would definitely be my dad. He was a dive master until his health got the better of him. And unfortunately had to go through a liver transplant and things. And so had quite a complicated medical history and couldn't scuba dive anymore. And has since passed away. So I would want to take him down just to learn from him and share his story and his passion for it. And then I was thinking about this, and I don't have actual names, but I was thinking it'd be really cool to take the most influential CEO of the biggest fishing company in the world down and show them, try and get them to love it, get them to connect to the animals they slaughter every day and get them to, appreciate the beauty of what it is down there and help them fall in love with it. And I think the same thing could be done with, any other kind of stresses to our oceans, like the oil and gas industry, where they have the main ports next to ships, like next to coral reefs, and they're loading coal on and off. You would take one of the CEOs from one of those ports who is of an influential nature and take them down and help them fall in love with it. So, that's definitely how I'd play that one.
Yeah. Good answers.
Yeah, good. And we kind of touched on this earlier, I guess. One of our other questions is we ask people about their comfort zones. What would take you out of your comfort zone?
Just my ideas. I mean, I guess you've got to be passionate about what you're doing in life, and for me, campaigning for climate action is what drives me forward. But at the same state, I feel like so many people don't get to experience the world around them in a true form, where they're out in nature in some, whether that's hiking, bushwalking, camping, diving, skiing, surfing, whatever it is. And so if we're not pushing our comfort zones by just picking an adventure and going on it, then I think we can lose that connection to the environment around us really, really quickly. And so one of the big things that I try and do with my projects is bring people to the nature, like bring them on the journey that I go on, so that if they're passionate about what I'm doing, they're going to be more inclined to try and protect the same areas I'm protecting. So yeah, I think being uncomfortable is a really good skill to gain. And it is a skill, and you can think of it that way. I'm doing this. I'm going to run a marathon because it's going to build resilience. It's going to make me better able to handle discomfort in the future. It's going to help me with my decision making. It's going to help me, do all sorts of other things in my life because I got up every morning at 4 a.m. and went running and trained and did this. So yeah, I definitely think that that's a really important part of development.
Definitely. And it inspires others around you as well. It can be quite infectious as well, can't it?
Absolutely. And it's viral like a smile, right? And people will ask you what you're doing, and they're like, oh, if that person can do it, surely I can do it. And if you have that thought, then go and do it. Have a crack.
Just do it.
What do you got to lose?
Yeah. Well, you've shown and you've proved it's all possible, and with dedication and strength, and you've shown it.
And I'm 5'2". I'm dyslexic. I used to freak out so hard when I had to call up a random company and try and find out who the person to talk to for sponsorship was. Like, I would procrastinate on that hardcore. I would spend 20 minutes just like trying to egg myself up to get the courage to pick up the phone. And it was only when I started to realize that all they could say was no, which was basically where I was right in this moment with a no, because I hadn't even asked the question, that there was nothing to lose by trying. So I gave it a go, and it led me on this incredible journey that I wouldn't change for the world.
And you must have been told, no, you can't. No, it's not possible. No, you can't. So many times. And especially, raising the money alone is a huge project, isn't it? Let alone the actual sailing that goes on afterwards. But if you suddenly thought, you know what, I'm going to raise 100,000, 200,000 pounds to buy a boat to sail around the world, just that first piece, that's amazing accomplishment, and to sit down and think, how am I going to do that?
And
people must have gone,
to me, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because most people think the record itself's the hard bit, and that's it. You endure the record. It's difficult, but you know what you signed up for. You did the research, you know what you're in for, right? But it's that mental side of backing yourself completely and getting a project off the ground, reverse engineering the end goal. What are the steps I need to take to get to that? How do I get a boat? How do I convince a complete stranger to lend me money? How do I deal with rejection from 2,000 companies while I try and find one that says yes? How do I suffer through that? And so that whole part of it to me is always 80% of the journey is getting to the start line.
That's drive, sheer drive.
Yeah.
Stubbornness, I call it, but you can go with drive.
There's nothing wrong with stubbornness at all.
Exactly.
But that also then prepares you. But that also helps prepares you, because you've got that self-drive and strength, mental strength to say, I am going to do this. This is my target. I'm going to do it, even though the haters are going, no, you can't. You just can't do it. And you're going, yeah, I can do it. And then once you got it, you then go out and sail it, because, you've got that strength. And I think it's good preparation to be able to go and do it. So, yeah, brilliant.
And I'm a big believer that life's an attitude. We can't choose what happens to the world around us. We can't choose what people say or do to us, but we can choose how we respond to it. And we can choose what we do with that. And I chose to just keep following my path and sailing my way down to a world record, and others chose to give up at the first person that said no to them, but that was a choice they made.
And everything is a choice, and it's up to us and our heart.
If it weren't for people like you, we'd still be living in caves, because we go, you can't go out that cave. Something like
Yeah, yeah. What? You can't make a wheel round.
It's true. It's true.
You want it to roll? Oh my gosh.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And our final question is, if you had a billboard that you could put out there to the whole world, what would you put on your billboard? And it could be, a sentence, video, picture, image, anything. But what message would it be?
Well, I'm actually trying to come up with a billboard at the moment. And it's the post-it notes from the climate action campaign up as a call for action, and a call for inspiration and change. But I do also really live by this quote, and the quote is just do, because the world is changed by doers. So it's the idea that don't wait around for it to be perfect. Don't wait around for that precise moment where everything's going to line up and the stars come together and it's just going to nail it. If you want to do it, make it happen. Just start taking action. And I think that applies as much to our environment as it does to projects, world records, getting into discomfort, like scuba diving, like any kind of facet of your life. If you want to do it, just make it happen. Like, just do, because you will be able to change the world if you start taking that action. And you never know where your world journey or your life's journey is going to take you if you start.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Really,
Brilliant.
really good answers. Yeah. Yeah. So if people want to find out more about you, follow you, put a post-it note out there, where is the best place for them to look you up?
So when I'm actively at sea on world records, I have a blog, videos, live tracker is all up on the website. So that is lisablairsailstheworld.com. And on the website, you'll find information on the climate action campaign, and you'll also find information on the next project, so you can have a little read. And then my social media platforms, so like Facebook, Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as well, but I'm really bad at it. Mostly Facebook and Instagram, and that is Lisa Blair Sails the World as well, keeping
Excellent.
it simple.
Yeah. Well, we'll put the links in the show notes so everybody can click on those. And I think we need to do a post-it note for the big scuba, don't we?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Really good,
do one each.
Yeah. We will.
My dad, actually, when he was a kid, it might be something cool you guys could do within your scuba diving community. Every year, annually, the local dive shop would host like a family event at the beach, and you would all go out. Well, I was too young to go, but dad and his mates and their families would go out with their scuba gear on, and they would go and clean the reef, and they'd go and clean all the, trash and stuff that they would find. But there was a bottle of whiskey hidden somewhere tied to a pineapple. And if you found the pineapple, you won the bottle of whiskey or rum or whatever it was at the time. And so it was the most coveted bottle ever, because it was such a competition amongst the blokes wanting to, all the people there wanting to be the one that found the pineapple that was buried on the reef. No, it was this huge, and every year they would do a barbecue and a get together and go and clean the reef for 3 or 4 hours, bring all the trash back and throw it away, and and go and find the pineapple, and whoever won the pineapple won the bottle of whiskey. So you never know, you can start your own climate initiative over there.
Yeah. We should actually. It's very good. I like that. And we should also say congratulations as well, because you've just been awarded the Order of Australian Medal for services to sailing. So that's amazing.
Yeah, so that's one of Australia's highest orders, which is pretty remarkable.
It's very well deserved as well. It's incredible.
Yeah, you look at the people who get the award as well, and you've got like some incredible researchers and scientists and doctors and all sorts of incredible people, and then there's little old me doing my thing. So it's perfectly timed, though. Hopefully it'll go a long way to helping me get the funding and stuff for the next record and make more out of that.
Yeah, and if there's anybody listening out there that is interested in sponsoring you or getting involved, then they know where to find you now.
My details are on the website. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Well, that's been a really brilliant podcast. Really inspiring. Yeah, absolutely amazing. So
thank you so much. No, it's been a pleasure.
No, thanks for coming on. We were so inspired by watching your film and Ice Maiden, so that's been brilliant.
And that was the short version of the film.
Was it?
Yeah. Wow. There was a whole container ship collision and all sorts of stuff. The whole film length is 101 minutes. It is going to streaming platforms, so updates will happen as they come through. You can find updates for the film at icemaidenfilm.com.
Okay.
So just for anyone who wants to check it out. but I also am looking to put a screening on in London when I'm there in June. So I might let you guys know, and you can let your audience know at the time.
Yeah, brilliant.
that'd be
Please
cool.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I think that film, even if you don't really have any interest in sailing or the watery world, you only need to watch it and you'd just be converted, because we just sat there with
a human interest story.
It is, absolutely, and just that determination. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and brilliant chat.
Yeah, thank you for being on the Big Scuba podcast.
Yay, thank you.
Woohoo!
Well, what can we say? That was just brilliant. And we've been talking for well over an hour.
Yeah.
And brilliant. We'll say thanks very much thanks to Lisa coming on and giving us some of her time.
There were so many sort of nuggets of inspiration, weren't there?
Yeah, and it is thanks to people like Lisa who go, do you know what? Time for a change. I'm going to do something. I'm going to put the effort into raising that money. And I can't imagine how hard that must have been to raise that money. That must have been really difficult.
Yeah, for the number of yeses, there are so many knockbacks and no's, and you just have to keep going and going. And, she's got that real resilience, stubbornness, whatever you want to call it. But look where it's got her.
Can you imagine the people going, you're going to do what? You can't do that.
And it's life, isn't it? There are so many people out there that just want to down people, that want to do something.
Yeah, but there's so many people out there who are going to go, do what? I am not accepting that. I am going to do this. And then not only did she do that, she went and done it. And then when that did happen to the boat and the sail, which you just can't imagine being knocked 50 meters sideways.
And being actually immersed in water.
Yeah. At night, freezing cold, on your own. But I guess survival kicks in. And then you think, well, actually, I've now got back to land. And for most people would go, that's it. I'm not going out. I ain't going out anymore. But turned around and went, actually, I'm going to go back to where that happened and start again to finish it.
Yeah. And then look forward to more new challenges as well.
It takes a certain character, and it is thanks to people like Lisa. We've got people like Lisa in the world, because I think certainly drives us all forward.
And what she's doing for the environment and bringing that awareness.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shocker actually when you think about all that. That 60% of the stuff that she was collecting is all these microplastics.
I know.
You can't see it, and that does worry you, because you think, well, where's that going to end? Because you hear stuff being recycled and things like that, and there's they bring stuff out, and something we were talking about a while ago, and I said to you, didn't I? The thing that worries me is that it says it disappears in water.
That's it. Those disposable.
What are we talking about?
Polystyrene balls that they put in packaging.
Yeah.
And they are disposable. They don't dissolve in water. But where does that? There's still micro plastics.
I know, but does that mean that you just no longer can see them? And just because you can't see them doesn't mean they're no longer there.
No,
it means you can't see them.
It's that mentality of out of sight, out of mind. But
I can't hardly see what's on my phone. So that doesn't mean what's on my phone isn't there.
Yeah. And what she's saying about the washing machine and our washing our clothes, and we're putting microplastics into the water system every time we put our washing machine on, because there are no sensitive filters. I suppose the filters are not small enough to capture these micro bits of plastic and textile.
But you do hear about it, don't you? About the studies done, just like even around here. And it's they say this below an acceptable level.
But there's not enough.
Shouldn't be there at all.
Yeah, there's not enough transparency about these, the facts that Lisa just told us about the microplastics, about the glass fibre in oysters. Would you eat oysters in Chichester Harbour? I wouldn't.
I've tried oysters and I don't particularly like oysters, because when I tried oysters, it just tasted like jellified seawater. And I was like, why am I eating this? It's foul. Yeah. And I'm sure add some garlic, And
maybe,
right.
but at the end of the day, they're filterers like mussels, and they're filtering water that is containing plastic.
Yeah. And mussels do that as well, don't
They
they?
do, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, if you're a seafood lover.
I prefer mussels. Bit of garlic, butter, lovely old job.
On scallops as well.
If you've got a recipe for mussels or oysters, do write in with an email and let us know how you like your mussels and oysters. We have had a listener who objected once.
Yes, he didn't like our scallop talk, did he?
No, well, I like scallops as well with a bit of garlic.
I know,
as
they're
well.
really nice.
Garlic and onions, yeah.
Anyway.
Before we upset some more listeners.
Yes, yeah. But if you're listening out there, I'd definitely follow Lisa Blair's website, and I think you'll be inspired by her on a daily basis.
Yeah, I like the post-it idea. I think that's clever, and it means everybody. I think the more journeys she makes and starts, I didn't realise she started afresh each time, and it's quite clever because you think, well, actually, that buys more people in, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Gives you more people reason to watch and follow, what's going on and what she's doing, and the challenges and the research that, especially if you can get schools, people like that, business by post-it space.
So her next voyage is London to London via the Arctic Circle. How amazing is that?
She likes cold water, doesn't she?
She does. Yeah, you think, you could go around the Caribbean or
I like
around the Indian
warm.
Ocean.
Yeah, I'd like to do it on, Bahamas maybe, where it's nice and warm and,
Yeah, Asia, around all the different, South Pacific islands.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm cut out for hanging over the side of a boat, cutting off a mast in the dark, freezing cold weather, and
I don't think I could cope with 20-minute micro sleeps. That sounds tough. You probably could.
Yeah, that's a power nap to me, and I think, well, I could probably cope.
That's a
with
bit of sofa surfing time. Yeah.
Should mention that to in case any of my CrossFit people, friends are listening about power naps after CrossFit.
Yeah.
Just 20 minutes.
Nice 8-hour sleep is regenerate.
Can you imagine though? You're lying there, and I'd be like thinking, right, you got miles from anyone else, and the boat is steering itself, but I've got to somehow try and get 20 minutes, and I think my eye would be half open, thinking, what's that noise? It'd be some other noise saying, what's that? What's going on?
I guess your body just gets, like it adjusts, doesn't it? So, physically and mentally, it's just a big thing. So, but yeah, that was a really, really good podcast.
It was.
We covered a lot. Yeah.
We have. Yeah. And like all these podcasts, we should say thank you to our lovely sponsors at NART.90. They are beyond technical, and you can find out all the marvelous and wonderful things that they sell for the discerning diver out there, from you name it, all the stuff for your rebreathers, stuff for your twin sets,
amazing strobes,
look at them strobes up, and you name it. If you've got any questions and you're like, where am I going to get my rebreather serviced? Well, speak to NARC.90 because they'll have the answer for you. They'll be able to do it for you.
And if you've got a question that you can't find the answer to do with your rebreather or some technical setup, then they're the people to ask.
Yeah. And the Go Dive show's coming soon, so make sure you get those tickets in, and we'll be there, I think the whole weekend, and also NARC.90 be there. They'll have a stand. So if you do see us wandering around aimlessly, do come and say hello.
Yes. We'll have our big scuba hoodies on or a t-shirt. So we'll be out there.
Certainly will. So right, I think that's kind of it, isn't it? I think we've done everything.
So thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading, and we look forward to catching up with you on the next podcast. So this was the Big Scuba Podcast.
Now that does wrap up today's episode of the Big Scuba Podcast. But if you want to hear more from the podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button depending on what platform you are listening on. That way you will never miss an episode from us. But If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and did enjoy what you heard today, we would really appreciate it if you head to the show page to leave a 5-star rating and review. It really does help us. If you do, please take a screenshot of that review and send it to us on Instagram, and we'll give you a shout out to say a big thank you. If you have any questions for us or anything that has been mentioned in today's episode, be sure to reach out to us on any of our social media platforms or send us an email. The links are in the show notes. We will get back to you no matter what. If you have made it to this point in the episode, we both want to say a big thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.